two international keynote speakers for this international e-conference. The first of these, Dr. Rishi, Prairie View A&M University, U.S.A. And second, Honorable Kriti Vashisht ma'am from McNeese State University, Louisiana, U.S.A. On behalf of the organizing committee of this international e-conference and Sri Kumaraswamy College, U.S.A., I heartily both of you, honorable chief guests and keynote speakers, for this international e-conference. Today we have session chair Dr. Anju Gandhi ma'am from PGT Mathematics, GGHS, Bihar. Now, before thank you, sir. And now I would like to invite today's keynote speaker, Honorable Dr. Rushiraj sir, for his keynote address. Please, sir, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Bedkar, for organizing this wonderful speaker series. I have been following your work, and you have been covering a lot of topics, wonderful range of topics. So thank you for this. Thank you for having us. Dr. Kriti Vashisht is joining in from Florida, and I am joining in from Texas. And together we will be presenting today on international education as a topic that affects all countries, whether students are going over there to pursue a degree or students are getting out to pursue study abroad programs and other avenues. So this is a topic that in today's world of globalization, this is an increasingly important topic. So we'll get started with the presentation, and then we will have question answers at the end. If you have any questions while we are presenting, feel free to raise your hand or chime in, and we will like to have an engaging session as well. So I'll let Dr. Kriti Vashisht get started with our content, but this is our information, the universities that we belong from. So if there's any questions that we are not able to cover today, feel free to reach out to us, and we will love to carry that conversation forward. All right, I'll let Dr. Vashisht get started.
Thank you, Dr. Rishi Raj, for the introduction. So I'm Dr. Kriti Vashisht. I'll be taking a few introductory slides. My section will be entirely based on statistics, and then I'll let Dr. Raj kind of assimilate the statistics into the theory and how that international education looks like in practice in the United States. So on the first slide, there is a four-dimensional overview of what international education look like. So when we talk about international education, it is about the association and exchange of students between two countries. So for example, if an Indian student chooses to come to U.S.A. To study or pursue any educational prospect, that student will be called international student. So that's the purview of international education. Then there are different type of exchanges and association that one and two country can do when it comes to education. The other is student exchange. Student exchange is that kind of transition or transaction in which students go to different university, but for a semester and for a year, they study abroad. Study abroad is also for 6 months and for a year period. And then we have research collaboration initiatives in which universities from Indian Institute, I'm referring to Indian institutes more because we are talking with the Indian population, but it's true for any country. When an Indian institute have a research collaboration with any United States or foreign research university for research purposes. Is there anything else you want to add, Dr. Raj, since that is something that you expertise in?
So the providing this four-dimensional overview is to just show that how international education is a very vaguely used term, but then there are very specific avenues that define it. This is we'll get more into it, and so when we talk about numbers, these avenues will make more sense. Let's get started with providing you some numbers and statistics so you can get a better idea of what international education looks like currently.
So when we talk about where the international students are heading towards, we talk about foreign countries like United States, United Kingdom, Canada. The list goes on to Japan, Italy, China, Germany, Australia, and Russia. Most of the student chooses United States of America because of all the countries in the chart are provide quality education, but United National students. Next slide, please.
A long number of years, and when you start looking at third onwards, then you'll see a drastic change in the numbers as well, where China is sending, where Chinese international students have been almost 3 lakhs, India crossing over 2.5 lakhs, but then you venture into the third one and the numbers drop significantly to almost 40,000 only. But yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So when we talk about international students coming from China, India, and so forth, choosing United States as its destination, when they choose to come to the United States, they also consider specific criterias, including diversity, inclusion, whether university impact factor, what are the or university efforts to kind of assimilate international student into their culture as well. So the top destination for international students coming from China, India, and so forth, they choose states like California, New York, Texas, Massachusetts, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Florida, Ohio, Michigan, Arizona, and other states. You will see that how California and New York attract most of the international student as compared to Arizona and Michigan, Texas as well. But there is you will notice that how the number of students coming to Texas is comparatively less than states like California and New York. Next slide. So when we talk about the specific states, we go into the specific universities, international student chooses to study. So New York University being the top on the list. And then we have Northeastern University, Boston. We have Columbia University. You will notice that how these universities are high rank when it comes to quality of education and impact factor. You will also notice, if we will go into the specific details, that how these universities are also very science and technology focuses, because that's what attracts most of the international students coming from China, India, and other countries. Going back to the list, then we have. Okay, I was giving a few more examples. We do have University of California being the most kind of attracted university for the international student. Then we have University of Texas Dallas, which is in Texas Dallas, and then we have Johns Hopkins University, which is primarily a very good institution for health and sciences. And then the list goes on to University of Wisconsin, Madison, and other institution. Next slide. If
Thank you. So I'll take it from here. So we looked at the numbers of where they're coming from, which states they're going to, which universities they're going to. This chart over here breaks it down to what are the academic levels of international students that are coming in. So you can see that the first, if you look at the bottom line that displays the numbers for this last academic year, we had over almost 3.5 lakh students who are undergraduate students, then almost 4.6, 4.7 lakh, which is your graduate students. And then you also have about 43,000 non-degree seeking students. So that is also a prospect that counts under international students. So for example, if somebody is enrolled in an English as a second language program at a university, that would be an enrollment count, but it will not count towards the degree enrollment. And then we also have something called the OPT, where international students studying on an F1 international student visa, they get to get some professional experience pertaining to their field or their degree. So that number also counts because the status remains the same as an international student. So we have almost 2 lakh students who are currently performing, who are enrolled in some kind of an OPT program, whether it's a job or an internship. Now, this is also something that tells us what the priorities of today's international students are. If you look at the various disciplines that are broken down over here, you'll see that STEM degrees tend to be more attractive for international students, and these are for a variety of reasons. Immigration is less of an obstacle when it comes to STEM degrees. The conversion factor from being a student to being an employee in your field, being a professional in your field, that is much higher when it comes to STEM fields. So that is why you see subjects like math, computer science, and engineering up at the top. Then you have business and management and commerce-related disciplines. And if you look at social sciences or humanities, they come towards the lower end of the spectrum. So this is the breakdown of what subjects are attracting international students. This does, while the list changes, the numbers change every year. But if you look back, if you look at the trend for at least 10 years back, it's mostly been STEM fields that have been the top attractors. This is one of the top 3 factors which proves as an obstacle for people who want to pursue international education in different countries. Funding becomes a very big factor in that decision. And so this is where the funding sources are coming from. Personal and family funds become the biggest contributor towards this. But other than that, we have options like scholarships, people who are saving up money from their current jobs, the people who have sponsorships. So sponsorships could be private, scholarships again could be private as well. So this gives you a better idea of where the funding channels are coming from, which are able to make students pursue their dreams and their aspirations for whatever subjects they pick. So that was the numbers of what we looked at. So the reason why we focused on United States, because as you saw in the first slide, that U.S. attracts the most number of international students. So that is why we focused all of our numbers and statistics on the climate of American higher education. But the impact that international students have, or the impact that American colleges have on international students, is way more than just these numbers. So if you just talk about the economics of how this works, because this is a $1 billion industry. Right. So if you look at tuition and fees, what international students are paying over here, it is categorized between either in-state or out-of-state. In-state tuition rates are applicable for domestic students who are studying over here, U.S. citizens. Out-of-state tuition rates fall for international students, which is double of what a domestic student pays. And while there are options like scholarships and fellowships, uh, very rarely you will find scholarships and fellowships that are only available for international students. So you have scholarship portals where domestic students have the same chances of applying as international students. So the competition goes up. Government or private funding that also exists. Uh, you have, so for example, a lot of international students coming in from the Middle East. They are sponsored by either the Department of Education in their home country, and there is usually always the caveat that the student after graduation will have to come back to their country and serve the country in that role or in that discipline. So all of the money that international students are bringing in through various channels, it is actually used by the university over here to subsidize the cost of domestic students of their tuition, their whether it's housing, whether any other sort of student service fee that they pay. Uh, but other than what international students are paying in tuition and fees, there is also they are also contributing to the American GDP in terms of spending for housing, healthcare, transportation, food, entertainment, and the list goes on. There's personal expenses, there's travel, and all that thing. But if you also step further from that, the impact is not just monetary, it's also the cultural diversity that international students bring in. So for somebody who is a domestic American student from a small town in Texas, who if they don't choose to pursue study abroad or go outside the country, travel outside of their where they live, just by sharing a classroom with people from different parts of the world, it broadens your perspective, brings you a cultural and diverse view of things. So that is also an impact. Then universities heavily rely on a global alumni network that is created and run and facilitated by international students. This helps the university's recruitment efforts for more students in the future, and also increases research collaboration efforts. Pursuing their education go on to further contribute to the American economy by having a job over here, having a business over here. If they own property over here, it has so there's the economic impact, whether it's monetary or the cultural impact. There is a very because we have over 1 million students currently in the US from other countries. So if you look at the numbers, it becomes extremely high, because while international students are just over 1 million, but they are about 5.6% of the total US higher education population, which is almost 19 million. And so that is why the numbers exponentially provide a bigger impact. To give you a better idea of what numbers look like recently, so international students this past year contributed 40.1 billion to the a 19% increase from last year. Recently, we are seeing all of our increases are in the 19s and the 20s and the 25%, because COVID impacted a lot of these things, and the numbers fell to record low numbers. So that is why when we are bouncing back from that, we are seeing much higher bounces. But if you look at what the highest economic contribution has been, which was $40.5 billion, which was not far long ago. It was in 2018, right before COVID struck. So we're hoping that numbers will go back to that, if not exceed those numbers. International students also create and support a lot of jobs. So almost 4 lakh jobs are directly or indirectly supported by international students just this last year, which was again almost a 10% increase from the previous academic year. And NAFSA, NAFSA, is one of the largest organizations for international education research here. They have created a formula that tells us that it takes 3 international students to create one job or support one domestic job in the US. And that allows us to calculate the economic factor as well. So looking at what the numbers are enrollment-wise, what the funding channels are, what the economic impact is, there are some predictions that we can make, at least for the short-term future, if not the long-term. One of the most highlighting features is that numbers are bouncing back wonderfully after the COVID loss. So enrollment is going up. That will affect more money coming in. So that will lead to creation of a lot of programs and services that died out during COVID-19. Then because of recent changes to the U.S. immigration policy and the COVID effect on immigration and travel and a lot of globalization pipelines, Canada has started becoming a very popular destination for international students recently. But that bubble seems to have been burst because a lot of Canadian universities are now putting bans on how many international students they can enroll. And the conversion ratio from being an international student to being a professional in Canada, that ratio has been hurt a lot. So now US is catering to that population as well, who were thinking about Canada, but now are reconsidering that decision. The third is after COVID-19 specifically, online learning has become a very integral part of education systems. So that is, it is safe to assume that that will stay for at least a while, if not forever. So there has been an increase in distance learning programs as well, where you don't even need to go to another country to pursue education. One of the biggest benefits about this is that it brings down the cost that you pay for education significantly, because then you only pay for credits that you study for. You're not paying any other miscellaneous student service fees. And the last thing that we could see a rise in is interdisciplinary studies, whether it's on the undergraduate level or on the graduate level, instead of choosing between the traditional routes, or whether you want to study STEM or business or social sciences. Now there are more and more degree programs coming up that are combining a lot of these different disciplines together. So that also opens up a lot of potential for what students would study and how they would convert this conversation. End of our presentation. And now I would like, if we would like to take questions from all of you. Questions, comments, anything.
Thank you, Dr. Rishi sir, and Dr. Kriti Vashisht ma'am, for your very useful presentation about the international education overview, economics, and future trends. Now, after this very wonderful lecture and presentation on the topic, I would like to invite participants and delegates with their questions. Please, participants, if you have any query, please ask.
Good evening, Dr. Rishi.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
This is Professor Badiuddin Ahmed from Hyderabad. I am into academics for last 30 years. There's a lot of attraction, people, going to US, Canada, and UK for last couple of years. Because I haven't been to any country so far, but what I have had the privilege to meet some of the students studying or have studied in the US. The present scenario is not as good as it is being portrayed by the people, because you need to pay the taxes, you need to pay the insurance, whatever. No, the people, students going and doing odd jobs. So how far this is true? Kindly highlight on that.
So, in some context, it is true. We also have to consider that the media plays a big role in portraying narratives. So a lot of these narratives have always existed, whether it was student migration in the early 90s when the tech era had just begun. So a lot of those systemic features exist till today. But the one thing that I have seen a sharp change in is perception. So if you look at international education maybe 2 decades ago, it was very skill based, and you only had people coming in who were wanting to take advantage of the tech boom and working in IBM and a lot of these big STEM companies. But now international education has become a very viable option for literally anyone. Anyone can save up if they have a job. If in India we are seeing non-traditional students who are already working in management roles for 5 to 7 years, and they are still choosing to come here, even if they have to do a double masters. Again, they are willing to do that because there is this belief that a degree from the US will fix things, or what will allow you to pursue your goals even more. But that is a one-dimensional view. A lot of students do not get a holistic picture of what the obstacles would be like, or how realistic the pipeline is for changing from being a student into being a professional. And then because getting a student visa is all about going, pursuing an educational degree, and then coming back. But then if you want to use that as a stepping stool into staying in a country permanently, then it is far beyond just what you're studying. It's the conversion ratio of, can you get a job in this field? If yes, the other bigger factor is, will your employer sponsor your employment visa? Because the employment visa system has a lottery system. So at one point, it is not entirely skill based, because luck does factor in. So that becomes a very big point when students are making this decision. And when you don't have that clarity of why you're going somewhere and what you will do with this, and you're just going there just hoping for the best. So that we are seeing the after effects of that poor decision making, where it is most of them, they get the realistic picture after coming over here. But only if we can fix the system where they have a holistic view of things before coming over here, I think students will be able to make a better decision. And this perception that if I go out in a country, to any country, that will fix things, that is no longer true. Maybe it was true at some point in the 90s, but it's not working out for everyone, as we can see.
Now, what do you suggest? Who can really afford to have the education in US or Canada? Because the Indians are mostly Indians are, they're not having the good economical background, putting a lot of, the parents are putting to hardship to sending their wards. So what is your suggestion?
Correct.
Because we as the teachers in the university can guide in the right perspective.
Correct. So one of the other things that plays a big role is, what are you studying? So yes, you can, and probably even if you are from a low socioeconomic background, people are taking out loans, people are saving up from their jobs and coming and studying over here. But that is not the only thing we have to consider when you think about affordability. It's, can you, even if you're taking a loan, you can still get a degree out of it, but can you make enough money to pay back that investment, and how's the return from that? So if you, that's why we see more students pick STEM fields, because the perception is that, yes, I will get a nice return and I can build on top of this. But then if you pick humanities, there is a struggle in getting an employment visa, which will not allow you to then make that money back, get your returns on that investment. So a lot of it is dependent not just on going and pursuing a degree, but also converting it into a job so you can get that investment back. And that is where a lot of this investment is failing, because immigration regulations are becoming very tightened, and a lot of times students are not aware of this second part of the step until they are already here or deep in their program. And then for a lot of them, it feels like an investment opportunity that is not going on that well. And increasingly, countries like India and China, they are producing so many jobs within their own country that you are seeing a migration, not just from Delhi to Dallas, but also Delhi to Bangalore, Delhi to Hyderabad, because the jobs that are being now you have American companies who are creating jobs in India itself. So I think at some point students, maybe in a couple of years, this next 10 years, the perception of how worthy it is to go outside and pursue an education, that perception has already started changing. And I think that will be a bigger push, especially with India's new education policy about making globalized education. So I think that will also step in and make changes.
Thank you so much, Rishi. Thank you, Rishi.
Thank you.
And just to add on to what Dr. Raj was saying, so there is definitely, that's a very good question, Dr. Ahmed, but there is definitely a transactional exchange between a host country and the country from where the international students are going. But there is a socio-cultural in the political discourses as well, which doesn't, like Dr. Raj was saying, that, the perception plays a big role. So we only focuses on the good transactional view of being an international student at the foreign country. But you will also notice that how there is a rise in lack of cultural resources, a lack of mental health services, how international students also go through a lot of mental health challenges when they transition into a host country, because that's not only that the only transactional resource when we talk about like how they are just going for the STEM degree and maybe there is a job prospect, but there is definitely a lack of holistic discourse within the media and also among the educators that we do not often talk about, and definitely being an international student in a foreign university, it hasn't been easy for the international students. So there is definitely a lot of social cultural discourses that international students kind of struggle with on every day.
Right. One more thing, the getting H1 is also became more difficult. The last year ending, it was 7 lakhs applicants were there. Only 65,000 luckiest guys have got it. And this also making a lot of chaos in the students community, parents also.
Correct. And one of the other things that this has given birth to, which if you look back a few years back, the top destinations would always be US, UK, and some of these countries. But now you're seeing a lot of second-tier countries who are opening up programs for international students, a lot of small European countries. Australia is increasingly becoming a very big destination for international students. So now you also see that market is getting saturated and well spread out because that bubble has broken that US or UK are the only places who can cater to international students.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I see Dr. Shukla has his hand up.
Good evening, Dr. Bedkar, sir. Good morning, the resource persons. Wonderful presentation you have made, and really, there is a metamorphosis is taking place in the education system, and the education is really becoming global, and we can acquire, whatever the things we want, in from any part of the world. That is very true what you have said, and really motivated us. I'm a professor in the medical college, and what is the advantage of the student exchange program, and what kind of credentials they will be getting, and how it will help when they will be back in India, and how it will help them? That is my first question. And my second question is, what are the fellowship courses or some courses are there at abroad for research purpose? These are my two basic questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shukla. So to answer your first question, and the fellowship, I'm assuming you're talking about the medical field. Is that right?
Yeah, medical field.
Okay. So since that is not my field, that is not my area of interest, so I don't have exact information about that, but I can always follow up with you with a list of fellowships I can come up with. But to answer your first question, So the way a student exchange program works is actually you have students from both countries, from two countries. So currently in my department, we have a partnership with a university from Tokyo, Akita International University from Japan. And it's an established relationship between two universities, which could have a declared X number of years, a lease kind of a thing, or you could just take it from year to year. And where you have students from both universities attending each other's universities and pursue, usually what happens is they're not pursuing an entire degree, but it could be for a semester or one academic year. And in the short term, the benefit for the student is that the student is immersed in a completely different cultural environment, a new educational system, which then affects the students' decision making when it comes to careers and where to live and all those things. But in the long term, it also benefits the institutions, which is why it is set up for the most part. It allows free exchange of whether it is research collaboration, capacity building, or just sharing of resources. Become a very good platform for social science research. And similarly, when it comes to if you're thinking from the angle of the developing country, where you might not have as many resources and research, whether it's agendas, frameworks, ethics guidelines, and a lot of resources that come in facilitating research, whether it's on the student level or on the faculty level. So then you have your host country, your partner country, institution who would provide you with those resources. So in that way, it benefits the students in the short term, but it also benefits universities in the long term. I have seen that student exchange programs have given birth to permanent programs where faculty would do fellowship from each other universities with a group of students. But to answer your second question, I will get back to you on that with a list of fellowships in the medical area.
Correct, sir. Sir, to have this kind of a tie up, what kind of legal formalities or other formalities we have to do with between two universities?
So there is really no more legality other than on an institutional level, because this is something that usually the universities would have a contract set in place, and there are boilerplate templates that already exist. So 90% of the contractual work already exists, and you use the same framework. But it's just the other 10% that are tied to specific institutional factors, and they will come into place. There's a very good chance that the countries, whether it's the Ministry of Education, whether on a state level or on a central level, they also facilitate this process. Sometimes they also subsidize the process, depending on the country or the state, or whether the university is private or public. So if it's a state university, then definitely the state government or the central government subsidizes and facilitates the process. But if it is a private university, then things could look a bit different. And but then you have third-party study abroad facilitator programs like AFS is a very big name. American Foreign Studies is a very big company. And so you have these third-party vendors who will do all of the contractual work for you. They also have in-person presence in both institutions. So they become the biggest facilitator of this program if it's a private university.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, can we get a list? We are from the medical field. So for the aligning institute, because suppose I'm sending my medical student, I have to send it to some medical this only. So can we get this list, like this, so we can put it in a this university level?
Yes, definitely. I will follow up with Dr. Bedkar on this, and I will convey this information to you. And maybe I'll connect with you, Dr. Chukla, and we can talk more about this.
Perfect, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Through memorandum of understanding, we can have this, what you said, Dr. Raj. MOUs can be signed between the universities, I suppose, both private and public.
Correct.
And as far as medical field is concerned, it's very different. USMLE is compulsory for but then completing his MD or something else, again, unless and until you pass the USMLE, you are not allowed to practice in US. That's big. Hardly 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10 are getting through the USMLE, what I've been observed for the last couple of years.
Yes, so specifically that is true with fields like medical and law, because the framework is so vastly different between, because they are so intrinsically tied up with the other schemes, the other scheme of how things work in a country. That in order for someone to come from the outside and step into whether it's medical or law, because both of these fields are so heavily focused on compliance, and the rules are set up by the bigger governing nations and the associations and the medical associations. So I know that if you talk about fellowships in the medical field, then it will not, the contract will be both the universities, but whoever their bigger accrediting agency is, they will also have a lot of things that they would like to control in these partnerships. That is something that I will get more information and follow up with you.
I think I can add to the idea of fellowship and postdoc positions. My field is public health, primarily intersectionality of mental health with the social determinants, but kind of related to health. So if you are following the residency, MD, the education route, then definitely what Dr. Raj has pointed out is the route to go. But if you look for postdoc positions and fellowships within the field of health, I have noticed in my personal experiences, most of the postdoc positions in higher up institution like John Hopkins hospitals and universities, they are actually based in the developing countries. So if you will be chosen as a postdoc or a fellow in one of the infectious institution, you're doing research on bacteria or any medical health related research, you will be based in maybe Ghana or India or the rural part of Maharashtra or Gujarat, right? But for that, you would not be qualified as a fellow, because being an international student, you cannot be applying for a fellowship or a postdoc position, which requires you to go outside the United States. But then there are postdocs and fellowship opportunities for international students that specifically is geographically located within the United States. So when you look for postdoc and fellowship positions within the medical field or health related field, that is one thing that you should be considering, because there is highly focused on developing countries, and they want to train their medical doctors and researcher in that kind of geographical location where they're learning more about the communities and connecting more with the communities. So that is one thing. And also the postdoc and the MD fellowship within the United States are very competitive and primarily restricted to students who are pursuing a degree from the United States. So it's competitive, but definitely, like Dr. Raj said, for the specific details, we can reach back to you and provide that details to you, Dr. Shukla.
And also in the United States, state governments have a lot more influence on higher education than the federal government. So compliance also matters in whether it's licensing or any kind of certification exams. They change as you move from one state to another. So that mobility is also very different from what you would see in India, because things are controlled on a central government level, but over here it's on a state government level. So that is also something to consider, because that also affects the career moves for people. That a lot of times you will not have to start everything from the scratch, but there is a lot of work that you would have to do if you change your states, because the compliance changes. Institutions like the UN or WHO, they are very good facilitators of collaborative programs that include US institutions and US faculty and doctors, but they allow them to get those credentials and get the groundwork done in developing countries.
Dr. Raj, Kriti was telling about something postdoc. Since mine is a management discipline, which universities in the US I can apply for postdoc?
So, you can anytime you Google the top 10 management schools in the US, and you'll get that list. So those are definitely your very popular options. But I have seen a recent spike especially when it comes to fellowships, that if interdisciplinary approaches and proposals are getting a lot of traction and getting a lot of popularity these days. So if you can combine management with information systems, so it brings a STEM angle into it. If you can combine management and social responsibility, that brings another different angle to it. So I think that those are getting more accepted and more popular than staying with a unidimensional approach. And that's the same for whether it's the top institutions or the smaller mid-sized institutions. But that approach is gaining a lot of traction.
What now present NAP is talking about multidisciplinary.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your kind information.
Sure.
And I guess, Dr. Ahmed, it's maybe the right time to kind of change our perspective and mindset as well. So when we look for a postdoc position or any kind of fellowship from India, so it's not only we look from the perspective that we will choose an institute or the university that will entertain us. It's kind of a mutual process. So I have seen an increasing kind of awareness among international students that they do not only look for university that accept them as a student, but also they look for university that they would want to go and pursue their higher education in. So it's always good to start with, what is your research interest? What is a current institute doing the research on? Are you interested in that? Is that something that you would want to kind of learn about? So there's definitely a perspective change that it's not only a linear transaction between a university accepting you, but also it's very mutually exclusive that you also are choosing where to go and why do you want to pursue that institute.
True, you're true. Exactly, you're true.
And as you look for institutions that could be a good option, it is very important to look at their institutional agenda, whether it's the broader university research agenda or on the smaller level, what are the individual departmental research agendas? Because so much funding is tied to the research agenda, which gets revised every year, that if your research agenda is very different from the department or institution that you're applying for, then it's not even a matter of how good your agenda is or how good your proposal is. But if it's not matching anyways, then it becomes very tough for you to find an advisor who's willing to work with you. So if you can look at similarities between your research agenda and their prospects, then that also makes the task a lot easier.
Absolutely, you're right. You're right. That's true. That otherwise there is no use of it.
Yes.
Yes. Once again, I would like to request participants, if you have any query or if you want to express your opinion about the international conference, please. I think the keynote speech was very elaborate. Lot of statistical data is given by the keynote speakers, and also an elaborate answer to the questions of Dr. Badiuddin sir and Dr. Shukla sir have been given by both of the keynote speakers. So most of the delegates and participants are satisfied about the keynote speech and the questions and the answers. So after this very fruitful question answer session, I would like to invite Honorable Principal Dr. M. Ambedkar sir for his concluding speech. Please, sir.
also listening.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
Dr. Bedkar.
Thank
I have added both of our email addresses in the chat, so if anyone wants to continue this conversation, feel free to email us.
Thank you, sir, for your concluding words. Now, on behalf of the college, I would like to thank both of the keynote speakers for sparing their precious time and exchanging their valuable information about the topic. So, on behalf of the college and organizing committee, I extend my sincere thanks to both of you, sir and ma'am. I also thank the chairperson of this international conference, Honorable Principal Dr. M. Bedkar, sir, for his continuous efforts to organize webinars and conferences for the benefit of students, researchers, teachers, and knowledge seekers. So, thank you, sir. I thank all the participants and delegates from different parts of the country and around the globe for their active participation and continuous support for this webinar series and the activity of the college. And now I would like to request participants, please do not miss to fill feedback form to get your certificates. And at the end, with the kind permission of Honorable Principal, I declare here that today's conference is over. Thanks to all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.